I studied video games for 8 years, and I want to help you decide if you should do the same. So everyone's built different, right? So I want to go through 5 steps to help you determine if you should go to school or if you want to pick one of the alternatives that I give. Every step will be kind of its own little ecosystem with its own little other solution. But in general, all of these steps would be things that would... But in general, all of these would be steps that would be covered in a school setting or in some sort of college. So let's start with step 1, which is one that most people don't really think about, but it's motivation. So what people tend to not understand is that education is the gamification of education, so to say. Everything is kind of out there, so you could study on your own and you could figure things out. But in general, the big problem that especially younger people or kids or things like that struggle with is the motivation. I was one of those people, right? There was no way in hell that younger me would sit down behind his PC every fucking day and try to grind through knowledge. But, you know, there are people out there that can do it on their own. But motivation is a big part. You have grades to work towards, you have kind of time slots that are assigned to you, and if you don't show up, you get deducted grades. So it's kind of this gamification, right? Like every action has a consequence, whereas if you just sit behind your own PC and do your own thing, actions that you have will only have consequences much later in life. That being said, there is alternatives to this, right? Let's say you choose not to go to school. Maybe you have the discipline to just sit down at your PC every day and figure this all out on your own. There's not a lot of people that can do that, but maybe if you're somewhat older or if you're one of the very disciplined younger youth, it could be a thing for you. Additionally, you could have a kind of a safety net around you. Maybe you have parents that can help you kind of force you into this kind of educational mindset. Maybe you have spouses, friends, ways where you can kind of create a system for yourself where you can motivate yourself to do the things you need to do to educate yourself. The second one is the most obvious one, which is knowledge. Now, there's a lot of knowledge out there, and if you go to school, you'll get a lot of people that hopefully know a lot of stuff that they can teach you. But there's something underneath that, right? There's something called the Dunning-Kruger effect, where, as a good friend of mine tells it, there's a point at the top of Mount Stupid, where you just started to realize kind of what, for example, game development or game design is, and then you slowly think that you know everything until you know a little bit more and you start to understand you don't know nothing at all. There's also an easier way to explain this. There's this quadrant about what you know and what you don't know. And there's this one corner of the quadrant that's really important, which is I don't know what I don't know. Meaning that in the end, you might not be able to find the knowledge yourself that you don't even know is knowledge you should be finding, right? And I think this is the most valuable thing you will get out of following an education, is that in essence, these people already know those don't knows you don't know, and they will be able to kind of teach those to you and you will be able to dive deeper into it. Now, there's an obvious alternative to this, right? Which is things like this, like YouTube, where you can find almost anything you ever want to learn on YouTube. If you just know where to find it, and if you can kind of spit out the bullshit. Because there's, of course, also a lot of kind of crap going around there. There's no real curation on what is real education and what is somewhat fake education. But there's also books. There's a bunch of different ways that you can attain knowledge yourself, as long as you somehow find a way to kind of cover that blind spot. Maybe find professionals to talk to. It's a little harder, but it's possible. And then there's step 3, which is inspiration. There is something about a human teacher inspiring you. There can be really, really kind of insanely good people out there that have a passion for teaching and kind of convey that to you, which can motivate you, which can give you extra knowledge, which does all this kind of invisible stuff that you can't really measure, which can be incredibly valuable, right? There's teachers in my life that have inspired me greatly, right? I wanted to go into teaching because I got so inspired by some of them. I didn't because reasons, but, you know, it's still kind of, it brings this feeling to you where you think you can take on the world, and where these knowledgeable people can kind of share their enthusiasm and share kind of why they entered the industry that you're educating for. And there's something invaluable about that. And I think that's really important to also realize. And of course, this is also replaceable by someone in your life or someone you look up to that you might be able to meet. Because I do think that there's this there's this need for that human connection to really get kind of that inspiration from these people. And in most school settings or educational settings, you will get to meet those people in real life, and you will notice what I mean, where they really, really inspire you to kind of go the extra mile and push yourself maybe a little more, or figure out that really difficult problem a little faster and not stop. Step 4 is experience. Now, if you're gonna go out there and gonna apply for jobs in the games industry, for example, especially as a game designer, or, well, in essence, as every discipline, they will want to see a portfolio. It's as simple as that. If you're junior, you need a portfolio. If you're senior, your portfolio is just kind of the games you worked on. But for junior positions, so people wanting to start out, and I think that's most of the people trying to watch a video like this, you're gonna need a portfolio. Education helps with that, right? Because you will most of the time do group setting projects where you create bigger games that you can put on a portfolio and showcase off to the industry. And the experience that you get from an education like this is that you get to work in these group settings. Most companies don't really care about your degree. Like, yes, it has some leverage here and there, and for some companies it's more important than others. But in the end, if you have a really stellar portfolio, no one's gonna kind of bat an eye at what kind of school you followed, right? And game design and game development degrees haven't even been around for a long time. Most of the time they were computer science degrees or things like that. So it doesn't really matter in the end for the degree thing, but it does matter for the kind of experience you can get from working in a team setting and making these great games you can put on your portfolio. Now, an alternative to this is game jams, right? Thank God game jams are there, because game jams are really awesome. They are the best way for you to experience the ups and downs of making a group project. It's a lot harder than doing everything on your own. People might think that doing everything on your own is really hard, but that's actually the easy part. The hard part is working with a bunch of other people. You all have a vision, you all have creative ideas, and you need to somehow find a way where this can work in a group setting and create kind of the best possible form of the art you want to create out there. But game jams are a great way to get this experience, so you don't necessarily need an education for that either. And then lastly, which is another one of these invisible steps, it's a network. As I said, I studied for 8 years, and I still know a bunch of the people, like college mates and study mates that I went to school with. And I know a lot of them that built companies that then hired people from the year that they were in school with. I know people that declined people based on their experience they had with them in college. Like, the networking you do in a school setting can really kind of change your perspective. One of my mentors said something really depressing but interesting. And that is that landing a job is like 40% know how to do it and 60% know who does it, right? So if you know the people that do it, it is a lot easier to land a job because they can vouch for you. And since these people are already hired in a company and already trusted by a company, their vouching is worth a lot more than your stellar CV or portfolio. It's not fair, but it's part of the truth, right? And a school setting will help you create these networks that can help you in the future and that can create these great opportunities for you further down the line. Be it that they start a studio that you can join, be it that you start a studio that they can join, or be it that they work somewhere that you want to work as well. Now, the alternative to this is, go to cons or go to gatherings or go to kind of local game industry get-togethers. There's a bunch of those out there. There's a bunch of networks where you can go and kind of figure this out. You have even Discord groups. You have a bunch of ways to build this network. But again, like going through the motions of an education, the highs, the lows, the difficulties will make a stronger bond than just meeting someone on Discord. That doesn't mean that it can't happen through Discord or through these meetups. I'm just saying that the education will automatically fill this in for you. So in the end, the question is really like, what do you think you can do on your own and what do you think an education will help you with? I think for the majority of people, an education is worth it, right? I'm not saying you should study it for 8 years. Like, I'm definitely not, because you shouldn't, because that was really dumb. But there's all these kind of invisible, unmeasurable things to following a form of education, be it 2 years, be it 4 years, be it a bachelor, be it a lower vocational education. It doesn't really matter, that really kind of help you grow and set you up for the future. So is a degree worthless? Yeah, like the degree doesn't really matter, but the experience is something that I think most people underestimate, and one of the greater values that an education will bring. I hope I helped you along the ride, or make a decision, or that I somewhat inspired you to do X or Y or Z. If you're interested to follow kind of what I do alongside these videos, I'm making a game at the moment. I'm fully logging my whole experience. I'm trying to create a realistic format of a devlog where I show the highs, the lows, and all the crap that happens in between. If you're interested in that kind of stuff, feel free to give me a follow, to subscribe, leave a comment to let me know what topics you would be interested in for me to talk about. These are my down week videos. I upload these every other week where I talk about topics that interest me or interest the community. And for the other stuff, you can follow my devlog. Thanks.